الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد. First of all, before we begin, Jazakallah khair. Hopefully this will be a beneficial workshop not only for ourselves, but also a form of reminder for us that one day we all have to pass this world and enter the next life. So my name is Moulana Asad, so I'm a charity for Community Outreach UK, and one of our Muslim Burial Trust. So the charity has been running in various aspects. We mainly do our work in this country as well as focusing in Africa, in Uganda and Kenya. But we deal with like domestic violence, homelessness. So the Muslim Burial Trust started about 5 years ago, and we run a free Janazah service within Lancashire area, and we will be expanding in more areas where we offer a free Janazah service. And part of that project like this, there's various other workshops that we do as well. This is one of the workshops. So in this particular workshop that we'll go through, you don't have to take any pictures of the slides. One is in live stream, so you have the videos available anyway. And secondly, also I'll share the slides with Moulana Naveed. Inshallah, he will share it with whoever wants. So you don't have to take any pictures, but do take note. I mean, a lot of the things that I will say will not be in the slides, but it's just a form of reminder that we can always go back to. It's a very lengthy slide, pages. So the whole workshop is based on two parts. One is the theoretical side, where we go through the slides, and in terms of the theories, there's also two parts. One is the law of Islam, very then the paperwork and so forth, and one is the fiqh, Islamically what we should be doing. So that's covered as well. And the second part of the workshop is a practical. So how do we bathe the deceased? How do we bury the deceased? Bereavement, how do we console people with aziyah and so forth? So these are things that are covered. Now, a lot of things. So if you do have, and second, most importantly, is that it's not a bayan. People do ask questions that will come later on in those slides. So if you have any questions upon the topics that we talk about, or the subjects that we're talking about, please raise your hands and stop me, and inshallah we'll. So it's more of an interactive. So the aim and objective of this is quite clear. That one is to remind us for the hereafter, the akhirah. Secondly, also there's a lot of bid'ats that take place. Islamic teachings that have been incorporated within our cultures, shall I say. Explain local burial arrangements. The last point was there's always some changes that take place. Minor changes, always minor changes. With the law of Islam, they always trial and error certain things in, take certain things out. But the carcass of it, the whole of it, it's quite similar to everywhere. So before the first part of life, so before somebody passes away, just at before on the last breath, and how should they prepare for that? This, which is preparing the will, should be, which is something that is quite incumbent upon everybody. This is before even the signs of death come on a person. A will is that, the Prophet ﷺ says in a hadith that it is not worth he spends 2 nights and possesses an item on which he should make a bequest. So anything that we have, monetary, business, anything that we have, write it how we should be, if I was to pass away, how that should be distributed. It doesn't matter if it's even a little bit of item. You might think it's a minor item, even if it's a mobile phone, even if it's anything. That's a clear hadith of that. But going to further than that, as we all know, that pass away, you know, it's sadly that the heirs start fighting straight away before even the burial happens. So it does help a lot of families if you do have a will written that how my wealth should be shared if I was to pass away, and who should get what share, and what should happen to me. So this should be done prior to before anything. When, you know, the same way we delay Hajj, that when we get older, when we get married, when we get a bit more wiser, then we'll go for Hajj. The same thing that people delay the will like that as well. It shouldn't be the case. How we don't delay a Hajj, we shouldn't delay a will as well. So always keep on top of this. Now the will also get older, or when our career path changes, or we change certain things in our lives, it will change. So update your will. Not every day, but every 2-3 months, every quarterly, or every 6 months, at least update your will, that what will happen. Now, a will is on the distribution of your property. Now, it's very important to understand this, that the will of that is abiding by the law of an Islamic will, or the law of Islam. But there are services which combine both of them together. So Muslim services like I will, or there's I solicitors. There's quite a few services online, as well as you probably know certain individuals, solicitors and all, which can combine both. Because if we don't do that, the laws of the land, in terms of our properties, in terms of our assets, can be taken away, or taxes have to be paid upon that asset and assets and houses after somebody dies. So these are some things that we should be very careful about and think about it. And consult somebody as well, those who are experts in this. So if you don't leave a will, the inheritance law of the UK will not distribute your wealth. So there's something called inheritance tax, which takes a chunk of the money away, a larger portion of the money. We have to be very careful about as well. So ensuring an Islamic burial, so even that in the will, predominantly if they don't have it written that I want an Islamic burial, they cremate their bodies in this country. And a lot of people that has happened. We've tried in certain instances where we've tried to release a body, but because it was not written, because be it they were converts, or be it the fact that their families were back home, or be it the law of the land is that no, if it is not written and they're not Muslims, the faith, we cremate the bodies. So it's very important to write that as well. So any situation can happen to us where that it's where we are alone, we die alone. That can also happen. We tend to have family, friends, and we have a community spirit around us. So there's that thing, the community will fight for that. But those individuals who don't, they have to write it down, or else the law of the land says that you just cremate the body. Now preparing wills, Islamic wills, or contact Darul Rooms, those who are experts in this field, they will advise you what to do in Islam. So that's the first part of to death, but before even before death occurs. So that's important for all of us here, that even if you're young or old, any assets that we have, any wealth that we have, we should always write a will. Now we move on to where we call the preparation of death service, just where death crawls upon a person. That's called end of life care. Now in this section we will discuss about it's more in detail about end of life care, who is allowed to, that we will touch upon and inshallah explain. Now end of life care, the person's body deteriorates so much so there is no way of coming in that bodily strength. So be it, for example, the last stages of cancer, or they've had a severe operation and it's gone failure, so they're saying, the doctors have said they've got a few hours to live, a few days to live. So end of life is where there is no way coming back again. If there is a possibility of that there is a possibility of moving back. The end of life care, the doctors say, or the medical experts say, they've only got a few hours or a few days of life care. Now, end of life care is very important. The person, if an elderly person, especially very aged elderly person, senior person goes to hospital, which is a severe illness that they will not return back from that illness. These are very, very important to put in place. Number one, when we enter the hospital and the end of life care patient enters, the doctors and the consultants that you can take the body, you can take this, the patient back home, or you can leave them at hospital. There is a third option of a hospice. Hospices are like private homes, you can say, where they have medical experts, nurses, and so forth in there. So there are three options a person has where a place of death: the hospital, the hospice, or the home. The second thing is allowing palliative care or life drugs. Does not mean that it prolongs life. A lot of people question that taking this drug is against our iman or against the belief. It's just like, for example, when we have a headache, that's not against our. We believe in the paracetamol, we believe in iman, that Allah gives the shifa. Taking a paracetamol. In the same manner, palliative care, or when we go have patients are taken to hospices and nurses take care of them 24 hours. So that's palliative care. For EOL drugs, it's very important to understand. A lot of people will sign for them. They say that no, we don't want to take them, we want to die naturally. For EOL drugs, end of life drugs, ease the pain of the deceased, not prolong the life. It does not go against our belief. It's entirely the person's choice, the family's choice. And last but not least is DNA CPR. Is where you might have, or you might just in life where ambulance crews come and they take the magnetic things out, they put in the chest to revive a person. That's long abbreviation. Powerful. If it's a very elderly person, very aged, not a senior person, their bones can crack and it can go to the lungs. That's how powerful it is. But if it's not signed, ambulance crew, it's upon them to revive that person. And they say no, or if the patient decides, I don't want to be revived again. If I'm on the end of life care, I don't want to be revived again. So, because that the hospitals will give that we want to opt out of that. So these are three things that are very important as family, communities, and patients to understand. What is the care? Two is allowing palliative care, district nurses or others as well. And the reason they have to be looked after by a female nurse. So there is a further issue and there is that issue. But this palliative care, they are experts in that field. We might cause more harm. And also DNA CPR. So remember these three things, inshallah. So after a person has passed, after there is a person of death occur. So from the Arabic root word hadara means that is the signs of the hereafter. So Islamically what we say is that the malakul maut is the angel of death is in front of them. So there is no return, they're in the brink of the worldly life and the hereafter. Life is, and when the death is occurring, that's called, after that person is called a muhtadar. So death is present or the angel of death is present. Now when a person is a long list that comes here that the breathing starts palpitating quite fast, a person will stiff, their nose bends, or there's certain things that happens. There are many signs that I mentioned. When that does occur, what do? So we lie them on their right side. Not masnoon things or advisable things to do. In a janazah, in a burial, or in any funeral, any aspects of funeral, there are two things we can always remember. One is the safety of the person giving that care. for example, the volunteers or the people that are giving the ghusl or the people that are picking the body up, always their safety. Number two is the respect of the deceased or the patient. These are two things to consider. Now, if this person who is a muhtadir, he's paralyzed or from the arms, he cannot straighten that, you're going to give taklif and harm to the deceased. Or if this person is of heavy weight and three of us try to pick them up, why you need about 7-8 people, you're going to damage yourself and harm yourself. So always remember the safety of the volunteer or the person that's taking the care, and two, the respect of the deceased or the patient. All in every single step of this. Always remember that. So these things that are listed, these are advisable things. If they are whichever side they're in, facing the qibla, moist to the face. Now, but around the house, who is muhtadir, we should do talqeen. Talqeen is reciting the kalima la ilaha illallah, the kalima tayyiba. Now, never order the person or the muhtadir or the deceased or the person about to die that to read the kalima, recite the kalima. People around, they should recite. Yes, there's many du'as are written in hadith about which du'as to recite. But to also recite, try to recite Surah Al-Yasin, Surah Al-Ra'ad, there's other surahs we can recite as well. In the Sunnah, in the Seerah, there's many surahs like that which are mentioned. But whilst the person but always do adhkar, we should not be talking, because at that time is the these are the states. Now, sakarat is of death, just last breath coming out. That's called sakarat, or right at the end of death. So these are some of the signs that come on that person, where the breathing becomes rapid, the pulse becomes irregular, and so forth. There are many other signs as well. But these are some of the main signs on a person appears to be there when a person is just about to die. Any questions on that section? Anybody about talqeen, about anything? Any questions? MashaAllah. So that's we move on. Now at home. 3 places. Yes, there are other scenarios we can say in a car accident, at work. I mean, there's other scenarios. The majority of people in this country either at home, hospital, or hospice. There's other incidents. They're on a holiday or they're driving, they died in a car accident. There are other incidents as well, but I think it'll fit into all these 3 things anyway. So after the person passes, the person passed away. So the family, the main thing to do is, within the family, there should be one person who leads the whole procession. There shouldn't be too many people. So even, for example, when the person is, we know that this person is elderly, quite ill, severely ill, who's at the end of life care. Now, one, an elder brother or a person who is quite well spoken, well connected, or who knows what to do, should take the lead and sort out all the paperwork, all the janazah, everything else. If we get too many people involved, it delays a lot of things. It delays the process and everything, and it puts a lot of taklif again and harm on the deceased. Now, what paperwork is required? These are things that to do immediately. Firstly, the sunnah thing to do is inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Stop recitation of Quran in that same room where the person has died. Yeah? We should not be reciting Quran in the same room. It's not allowed. In the next room or the next door room, it's fine to recite the Quran in the same house. Gently close the eyes. So usually what happens is that when a person dies, their eyes open up. The body starts to flop a little. Let's say go a bit soft. The eyes, closing the jaws, tying a ribbon. Some also say that we should straighten the legs as well as the arms to the side or to the front. Either way is fine. But like I said before, 2 things also to consider is the safety of the volunteer or the person looking after that, or secondly also not to give harm to the deceased. If the deceased, you cannot do that, however it is really. There are du'as that are written to recite or not to recite. These are Muslim again, inshallah you can find in the books as well. Now, the removal of all jewelry. Now, what happens is that, especially with women who have bangles on, who have other types of jewelry, try and remove it straight away. There is an illness called rigor mortis that comes. So when a person passes away, once the body is still hot and the blood is still flowing for a few hours, in fact. So the body is still quite flexible in the sense that you can move the hands and arms. Now, if you, after a short while, what happens is that the body goes stiff, and the bones cannot move. So then we have to get grinders to put out bangles and so forth. If a person is at the end of life care, an elderly person is going to hospital or hospice, we know that they are at the end of life or the hospice, we should be removing all the jewelry from them. Remove all the jewelry from them. Secondly, also, is that before we send to the hospital, any unwanted hair, the pubic hair, or the armpit hair, or the moustache, anything, we should be cleansing them before we go to the hospital or before we take them to the hospice. That makes, because after the death has occurred, it makes the process very easy then. That if you don't remove the jewelry straight away, after 4 or 5 hours, the hands are not spread out, or the body will take bangles off, or rings off, or earrings off, and so forth. Then cover the body with a cloth or with the bed sheet. Now, do not remove nails or unwanted hair. And pubic hair or the armpits hair. But after they are passed, you send them to the hereafter, however they died. You cannot remove their hair, like in the other traditions or the faiths where they shave them and then they adorn them with a suit, or we don't. In Islamically, we don't do that. However a person dies, that's how he is buried. So before they die, that's why I said before they go to hospital or if they're on end of life care, we should be doing that because there is inevitable any minute, any time that the death can occur. The du'as to recite, there's many of the du'as. And the first, these are the 4 people we should be contacting straight away. Like I said, one person should take lead. It shouldn't be posted on social media or anything like that. No, that's the wrong way to do it. It's disrespect to the deceased. The first person you should be contacting before the family doctor is if they die at home. Then you should be contacting 111, or if they are end of life. If they are not end of life, so accidentally, then you dial 999 and you call the ambulance and they'll come over. Now, after they've come, if the paramedics, ambulance service say that they've passed away, you contact the family doctor, the GP. Sadly, a lot of youngsters, whose parents pass away, the GP is in. Sadly, very, very sad situation we live in nowadays. Children have moved out, they're working, don't even know where their family GP is, or the parents' GP is, and it delays the process. So the deceased person's GP should be contacted first. Yes, if it's a Muslim doctor, it makes the process a bit easier then because you can contact them personally, or if you know them personally, it makes it easier. Number 2 is a local funeral director. So you contact them. If you've got a funeral service within the masjid, use them. If you've got for example, we're a charity, use those, or any funeral director, you can. Third, you should the management. This is for them to prepare for the ghusl and just to prepare for the Janazah salah. And the last but not least, we don't post it to everybody, it is close relatives. Because at that moment in time, the family are going through a lot of bereavement. So you don't want to overwhelm WhatsApp messages and social media and so forth. These are the only 4 categories of 4 people that we should be contacting. No other person straight away should not be contacted. It makes life more difficult. Because a lot of people get involved there, the local councillor or the MP involved, and then it makes the process a bit more difficult to release the paperwork and so forth. Now, I know the person can pass away. Most of the time people pass away at the home, the hospital, or the hospice. Now there are scenarios. It's an expected death. So the people, a patient has been in hospital for 2 months, and the doctors have said there is no. So the doctors know that of this certain illness, be it for heart problems or that's called an expected. They know that death will come. The cause of death is known. Now, then please take them home. They come home and they get shot or they get stabbed. That is not the same thing because they die of a different cause. That is not an expected death. Why is that? The process is different. When that person died, few hours. Scenario number 2, person dies at home. Post-mortem may be required. That's what I'm talking about here, this one. So if that's one scenario. To just die, so maybe when a person dies at home, then that would be post-mortem may be required. But most of the time, if they die without, then they will be post-mortem. Most of the time, they will be post-mortem. Person dies in hospital, so that's quite an easy process. And lastly, person dies in hospital, cause of death is all known, post-mortem may be required. Now the post-mortem is, there's 2 types of post-mortem. There's the digital post-mortem, which is 97% of the time they do digital post-mortem now. They say 7 out of 10 bodies they will do post-mortem. There are 3 bodies. So a digital autopsy or a digital post-mortem is where they use MRI scans for that. Now, that is then reported to the coroner. Now, the coroner, the person that decides that he's the person that decides. Now, it's not a he, it's an officer. In between the coroner, I hear this. You go to the doctor, then you go to the coroner at the top. So when a person dies, you contact the family doctor. So they will refer them to the coroners if that's. So they come back to the doctor. It's their decision. In between that, in the UK, they are doing something called the ME, medical examiner, in between. So that person, we've got one in Blackburn Hospital, Coventry, that piloted it out in 2019. So now they pilot it. It's called the ME. So ME is a senior doctor within the hospital. When a person dies, instead of going to the coroner's paperwork, and if they're happy with it, they say, okay, we can bury the body. If they're not happy with it, or if there's a scenario that iffy there, or there's a few questions there, they'll refer it back to the coroner. You can say, okay, so they're in between an ME. Now that's it's only certain places. In Blackburn Hospital, in Burnley, in those areas, they have them. They have them there. In Coventry, they have them. I think it was six towns and cities in the country, they have an ME officer, medical examiner. The benefit of that, weeks to release that body. If it's a murder case or if it's something, they can take days and weeks. So it prolongs it. So then what happens is that they can decide up because they're medical experts. So they'll have an office. So they're piloting this out at the moment. Yet. Because the coroner's office, majority of the towns and cities, you have a senior coroner, yeah, and then you have all the assistant coroners. So each town and city will have a coroner itself. Now, the coroner is people within that office that work. It's not one individual person's decision. Now, the coroner's job to check there was no neglect upon them. And 2 is for them to look after the doctors and the medical experts. They haven't done anything wrong. So both sides, that's why they're there. Secondly, also what they do is that if a person, the coroners are involved, a legal case, so there's a hearing and everything. So after the coroner has looked, there will be a full case. But sometimes it can take weeks, months, years even. After years and years, the family will have to go to the court to hear how this person died. For them to read the safety of so the patient is not neglected. That's one, and two, for the safety of the medical experts. That's why the coroner is in place there. Very important in this country because obviously, like, for example, in Manchester, remember a few years back, a doctor who killed a lot of babies for no reason. A lot of kids. Dr. Shit, what's it called? Hyde, yeah, Manchester area, Hyde area. So like that. That happens. It takes years and years, sometimes years and years, months and months, cases to come like that happens. We as Muslims think that why is the coroner going to want the body to be buried? But sometimes the neglect that happens to patients by nurses and doctors. Now, a post-mortem or 97% of bodies nowadays deceased are called MRI. But sometimes, because you have to understand, that when present, not every hospital has the process. It's Manchester, and that costs about £700-800. Some families, because the coroners will say that the thing is up and they get a digital autopsy, the report come, they can release the body straight away. If it's the NHS one, what happens? For brain scans, for heart scans, for every time. There's no priority list on a person who dies. They might delay that. So, but post-mortem, also known as autopsy, if that digital autopsy comes back, so there's a digital post-mortem, 97% of the time they do that. Now the coroner, they will look at the digital photographs and medical experts and all that, and say, is there a match between their medical history and how they died? If the process goes on, where we can bury the body. If he's not happy with that, autopsy or full post-mortem, which is where you put the person up and then look inside to say that why has this happened. Now by law, people do workshops and people ask, can we write down our will that that body is in the coroner's office until they are released. Legally, they are under the coroner's office, but we cannot bury that body. The coroner's office will decide when that body will be released and buried. So understand that? It's very a lot of people say that, oh, we opt out of the coroner's office. They do digital autopsy, and they do understand. The coroner's office are very, very cooperative with the Muslim community, that they release the body very, very quickly, in the sense that they do understand that we want to get buried very quickly. So an inquest is and a case for a court case. So the inquest is an inquiry. So why was there neglect from the hospital? How was there neglect from social services? Was there neglect in the home? They will look into that, and there will be full court proceedings. So after the person dies, the doctor has given the death certificate, or the coroner's office has. The first thing to register the death. When a person dies in this country, we do a death certificate. That's called registration of the death. And usually in this country now, usually it's done in the registrar's office. So town hall, sometimes it depends in Scunthorpe here what you have here. But sometimes the registration birth certificates and so forth. So, but these are some of the people who can only do the register the death. So the relatively deceased, someone present at the time. So there's a longer list. But usually now what they do, or the masjid committee or masjid imam, and you give the details to the doctors. The registrar's office will one of the next of kin, and they will take the details from them and they register it. So once the registration happens, what is required? These are things that are required. Simple, necessary things that are required for the registration. Once the registration is gone through, the registrar's office will give two certificates. One is called the certificate of registration of death, or a death certificate. Now that usually costs about 8 to 12 on the council. I think Burnley is about £10 or something each copy. So depending on the council, it costs about 8 to 12 pounds. That's the death certificate. How you have a birth certificate, you have a death certificate. That's important for people who have mortgages, student loans, and stuff like that. You have to show proof of death. For benefits, you need one copy at least. Sometimes people say you want a copy. It's very important. Depending on each situation, the person has mortgages, banks, accounts, and so forth. To close them accounts, you have to. And the second one, the certificate of disposal, or usually they call it the green, because it's printed on a green piece of paper, or it comes in a green piece of paper, and it's called the green. Now that's the most important to have. With that certificate, if a person dies at hospital, they take him to the hospital morgue. They keep him overnight there in the fridge, or they keep him there. To release the body from the hospital, you have to have the green. That's the first job of the green. And the second job of the green certificate is to bury the body. To bury the body in the cemetery, you have to have the green as well. Okay? So it's called a disposal certificate because with that certificate only. So two things that the green does is one, to release the body from the hospital, because every single body is given a code or a number. On the green certificate, that code will be given, and that's shared upon everywhere else. So it's all synchronized together. That person has been legally buried in this country. So that's the process. So again, today in COVID times, you don't have to physically go to collect the certificate. They email it or they send it on WhatsApp or the digital ways. So this is the simple legal process of burial. Has the cause of death been determined and medical certificate issued? So the first one, doctor will issue a medical certificate, so it's called the MCCD, so the cause of death. Once that has been issued, if the doctor, once that's been issued, the doctor will pass that on to the coroner's office. If the coroner is happy with that, then contact the registrar office, obtain death certificate and certificate of disposal, and then contact the cemetery to bury the body. If the cause of death is not matching, then death will be reported to the coroner's office. No action can be taken until clearance has been obtained to the next working day. Next working day means sometimes it can be prolonged, depending on, especially during COVID time. COVID time was much easier actually because the process was much easier. They knew this cause of death was similar for everybody. It was quite similar. The coroner will inform the. So you know when the coroner is involved, the registrar's office. The coroner's office will do that for you, and the coroner's office the registrar's office will bring. The process will go on. If this is the other way around, your GP and GP says, I'll give you a death certificate, and the coroner's office says, we're happy. So then you have to physically phone the registrar's office, and the registrar's office will take the details and the process carries on, and then you can legally bury the body. Now, burial arrangements certificate of the coroner has issued the burial. So the both similar things, medical certificate or the burial order. Make an appointment with the registrar's office, and as I said, today you are in COVID time, they don't have to do that because they will call the next of kin and take the details. Collect the deceased from the mortuary, that's if they died at home, and take him to the masjid for ghusl. Complete cemetery forms and pay fees. In some cemeteries, we deal with that. You don't have to pay the fees before the burial. You can pay. They usually send an invoice after 2 or 3 days, and they get 28 days to pay that fees up. In some cemeteries, we work with the fees has to be paid before the burial, and the family go and they pay the fees. Confirm grave and after that has been done from the cemetery office, when they have confirmed a burial time, that is on a WhatsApp or a social media message out that the Janazah time has been confirmed. Until then, so all that process background, we do not give any announcements of Janazah times. We do not give any announcements until then. I even said, I remember one burial once, it rained so much so that the grave got flooded, and we had to delay it for the next day. And people had travelled from all over the grave, and you had to delay the burial. So even then, things can happen. Naturally, things can happen. Natural things can occur. Obstacles can occur. You can delay the burial. But I'm saying most of the time when you paid the fees or fill the forms in for the cemetery, we put a text message or a message out to the Janazah will be this time and burial will be this time. That's the only time. Before that, we should not be, what time is burial? When burial going to happen? When's the body going to go? It's not in our hands. A person dies until the corridors of, until between that time, coroner's office, it's upon them. The more you call them, the more they will delay the process. It's best not to call them. They usually process it very, very easily, quite quickly anyway. Arrange as required with the masjid management of janazahs and so forth, burial at the cemetery of the choice of the bereaved family. So that's the 5 steps on when a person has died, what to do in terms of burying janazah. Now, this is our bereavement service for the areas in Lancashire areas. There's bereavements. I mean, what is the closest cemetery here, Moulana? Is that the cemetery that you guys use? Yeah. So if you got a bereavement service here, the cemetery within Scunthorpe, so they've got probably a Muslim section within the area. So yeah, so you have to contact them. These are contact details for the Lancashire area. Any questions with that?
Is it okay if I take you back a few slides? Just wanted, is it possible if you could shed some light on the statement of intent?
No, it's not a process that is quite common, shall I say. That's why it's very, very rarely. Very, very rarely. That's only when the deceased family, the patient's family decide that we want to end their life, or if the doctors have said. Sorry. Yeah. So if the deceased family, the patient's family decide that we want to end the life, the end of life care, the patient, or the fact that yes, this person will die on this cause. If there's 100%, they will give that. But then again, there is a question about that. It depends. It might be referred to the coroner. Just to make sure, like I said, the coroner's office is all right, there was no neglect on them, and from the doctors and the medical expert side, that they did not do anything wrong. Yes, there's the third thing they do is that they, for example, a learning curve. So do that as well. Well, that's only for patients who have written that you can use my body for research and so forth. But that process is very. Well, if it is done, it can work. Well, it doesn't really speed the process anyway at all.
So does it stop the paramedics from taking the body to the hospital?
From the home, yeah. See, this is where funeral directors play a big part. We used to have the same problem. When we started 5 years ago, we used to have the same problem. Now the police, the person dies at home, for example, it's considered as a murder case straight away, unless it was an expected death. So the police will get involved, the police will come after the paramedics. Now the first people that the police call now, if the person dies in Burnley, Nelson area, is because they've replicated that response with them. Now, the paramedics don't have, legally have, if the family have a funeral directive, an expected death, they don't have to legally take, they're not bound to legally. It's upon the family to decide. That's why it's best to paramedics contact the GP, then they will issue the certificate. Like for example, my father died. My father died 1.5 years ago. So before we contacted it, when he was about to die, I was on the phone with the ambulance service. My brother called our GP, who's a Bangladeshi doctor, so we know him. So he called him, and over the phone, he spoke to the paramedics, and he said, don't worry, I'll issue the death certificate. He's my patient for many years. So they didn't take the body. The police came, they said, the ambulance service said, we spoke to his GP, it's fine. So as long as the GP, if it's a doctor or a consultant from the hospital, can determine that the cause of death is the same as the reason why they have died, body home. At once, the bodies were not taken, they don't have to take them to the hospital. They don't have to. But at times when the cause of death is not known, or the doctor is available to come, it's best to send the body. It's easier then. If you keep the body, again the paramedics will not take it. Because the doctors will have to come. If you don't have the vicinity, and you're storing 3-4 bodies at the same time, and you've got, not touch that body. The paramedics don't have to take the, if you have a medical doctor who has seen that patient within a certain period of time, that again is changing. It changes every so often. In COVID time is about 23 days. Now it's sitting about less than that, it's about 2 weeks now. Even a video call, if the doctor with the patient who died, then that's even sufficient as well.
You're saying that the reason that sometimes in contact whoever it is, it makes it easier, but sometimes family members with a dispute, the person died at home and they say, oh, they have done something to my brother or my sister or whatever. So then the police are involved, it happened in the few towns being informed. So then one family member calling the police, the other family member calling
the police. That's what I'm saying,
yeah. So it gets into dispute and you got wrangled on and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So
that's what I'm saying. So every case is different, but that it makes the process very easy. So so near the deceased, so after the person's died, now if the person has died, so women and hayim on the fast, sitting near them, what should they do? Reciting the Quran next to the person, kissing the deceased, keeping the body in the mortuary, non-mahram looking at the deceased. So these are some important points. So people allowed to be present, those people who are very close family, very, very close family, and also try to have those people who are quite difficult time for the family, overwhelming, crying, if they're wailing, and so forth. They go into a very difficult time. So try those people who are quite physically strong as well as mentally strong, spiritually strong, have them around. Sadly, as Muslims, when a person dies, we become experts in every field. We become experts, in every type of field. Now, during this field, like that's what they're saying, everybody says something. If one person takes the lead, then the process becomes very easy, very peaceful for the deceased also. Very, very peaceful for the deceased. Scholars differ whether the female with the menstrual period, haid, or the fast postnatal bleeding should withdraw from the presence of the muhtadir. Now, there is a difference of opinion here. Now, during the COVID time, where patients were dying in hospital by themselves, and then they were being brought back to the masjid for the ghusl and then buried straight away. A lot of people, there was a debate on, or should people, women on hay, are they allowed to come or not? Now, if that beloved father or someone's mother has passed away in the hospital for the last month or so, and they haven't been on their side, these minor differences we should not look at. Even to such an extent, if a person dies, a male person died, and the wife is at home, and yes, she has to go into Iddah, she has to go into the 4 months and 10 days staying at home. Even that, seeing the face of the last time, is something that we should look at each situation differently, look at each scenario differently. We don't be that strict. You're not allowed to see the face, or you're not allowed to be in the same room. If they are going to go to a mental breakdown, then there is a leeway for that. So in the Hanafi madhab, there's a scholarly difference that should a female on a haid in the past, should they be in the same room? Can the state be their daughter or their wife or their mother? Can they be in the same room, or should they go away from them? So again, it is advisable that a woman in this space does not see. It's just only advisable. It's not followed, it's not compulsory, it's advisable. They can be in that room, it's fine. Now, reciting the Quran is a dislike, makruh. Again, it's makruh again, minor dislike. To recite the Quran near the deceased until the ghusl is done. It's because the person until their ghusl has been done, we shouldn't recite the Quran next to them. It's makruh. Yeah? A lot of people, like again, we have during COVID time especially, where people have not seen their families for months and months, weeks and months, and people will recite the Quran even after the day. Because they haven't seen them for so long. They've only got 3 hours before the burial has to happen. Now, if we're going to say, oh, it's haram, it's this, it's that, they're causing more harm than good here. It's makruh, which is a very, very minor dislike. What is allowed to recite other forms of dua and dhikr, so dua and dhikr is fine. Treating the deceased, now there's many ahadith, even to the best one I can think about is when the Prophet passed away, as Abu Bakr was not there, he had to come away from it. And when he came back, he kissed the forehead of the Prophet. This hadith is, so I saw the Prophet kiss Uthman ibn Mas'ud when he passed away, and I saw that tears were flowing from his eyes. So the Prophet also kissed. So touching the deceased and kissing the deceased on the forehead, it's also allowed. But who can touch and who can see? It is only permissible for a mahram or king to see the face of the deceased, male or female. Not the next door neighbor, because we've grown up here, we call them auntie. It doesn't work like that. Islam is not a matter of just, it is not permissible. This is where we should be quite strict. We don't be strict on these things. Who can be allowed to see the face, or who cannot be allowed to, even if we're not practicing during our living days, where those who are non-mahram and mahram, we don't differentiate nowadays. Farda is quite flexible nowadays. But to see that face it's not allowed. It's not allowed. It's haram. It's a very, very severe sin compared to reciting the Quran or being in the same room as the state of hayd in the past. So just like whilst a person was living, it should be respected in the same manner. The women folk especially, there was Fatima radiallahu ta'ala, when she passed away, she said my janazah should be done in the night time. And one of the sahabiyats, she made a hawdaj, a covering over the body with sticks. And Fatima said, show me. So she actually showed her what she would become. So that's part of that. She was buried in the middle of the night, and whilst there was a covering. So that's how much veil should be done. They did that much, and we openly show the face in the masjid and in the halls to everybody and every person. Now, a mortuary or home is kept for hygienic storage and examination. Usually, every hospital has a morgue or a mortuary. Some masjids have also mortuary facilities. Our charity, we have a kulti where it can be taken to a home, so it's not a standard 36-inch door. You can go in through that, you can transport it into a normal car. So we have them. tested for any facility, it would be it a home or be it in the the mortuary, what that does is because the body it deteriorates very fast. So just to slow that process, they cool it down and freeze, freeze the process of that. So after the body has been released, the paperwork has been done. We come to the process of washing now. So the coroner's office has released the body, the doctors, everything, all the paperwork has been done. You collected the body from the mortuary, and now it's the washing process. So why is ghusl necessary? Essential items required for ghusl, preparing the shroud, difference in men and women's, the ghusl process. This part I'm just going to skip through it very fast because I'll show you the category. We've got some of the items here. We've got a mannequin here, so I'll try and show it practically as much as possible. So where to keep the deceased? It is recommended to move the deceased body to a mortuary or a cold room if there is a risk of the funeral being delayed. Now, if a person died in the morning, and you know that by the same that will give you the death certificate. So they've given the death certificate. They've given the word that tomorrow morning give the death certificate. There is no mortuary. But if we think that, oh, I have to wait for my from Bangladesh, they have to come and then they have to join the Janazah. So we're going to wait for a day or two. Yeah? So then it's very, very necessary to put the body into a freezer or a mortuary. Why? Because of rigor mortis. The stiffness of the body happens and then it's impossible to, and the body deteriorates. So more than 6-7 hours, it starts smelling. 6-7 hours, they start smelling. It is further kifaya, a communal obligation to give a Muslim deceased ghusl, a full bath. Now this is very important to digest, that those brothers and sisters who are converts or who don't have family and they're dying at the hospital and they don't write in the will that I'm a Muslim, family name, and they don't know if they're Muslim or not. Yeah? So I am a convert, I have and washed in the Muslim community. We have not done that. Remember, it is further kifaya upon us to give that ghusl for that Muslim. For that Muslim. So we have to try and work with the hospitals or try and work with the doctors where convert does die. And if there are converts in our communities, always, especially the elderly ones, keep in touch with them. Keep in touch with them. And have or if they were to die, it's followed upon the community. It's a communal obligation, meaning that if a portion of the community does not do this, does not give the ghusl, and all the community we send will be questionable for that. So these are essential items. Now, there's a list here. I've got them. Notice the mic goes all the way far. I'm going to take this off. So these are some of the items that we have. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, no.
So what we do, we have this is a cover, a shroud. A shroud. Now we pack it like this. So all the shroud is packed. This is a female one. And we write the length. So this is fit for a 5'3" female. 5'3", 5'4" female. And all the necessary pieces are packed in this. And apart from the cover, what we also need is 2 opaque pieces of cloth. Now these two are used for satar, to cover the body. When we take the clothes off and wash the body, you cover the body. Now you don't need to be too long because the satar has to be only for a woman from here to her ankles. So it doesn't have to be too big. Yeah. For a man, it's navel to the knees. So again, you just cover it. So you need 2. Sometimes you need more depending on the situation of the deceased. If they've got a lot of blood, if they've come from a car accident or they've been burnt, you need more sometimes because they get dirty. So 2 is enough. Also necessary is 2 pieces of 2 towels. So usually we use bathing towels, not too big. towels. Some of the women folk, volunteers, they also use beach towels. Now, beach towels are huge ones. I think it's bigger than these. Yeah, it's bigger than these. The reason why, what they do is that they use them to slide the body. So they put them underneath. Women usually need bigger towels because of the bone structure. Now, what they do is that they usually put them underneath to pull the body apart because they can't. Sometimes, like I said, safety of the volunteers is very, very, very important. So again, towel 2 is okay. It's minimal, but sometimes you need 3 or 4. You remember this, as Muslims now in this country, we've come to an understanding where fuzul kharji or over expenditure on weddings is coming down a little bit. But the understanding is there. It's the same process in Janazah. We should not be overspending in Janazah as well. So even to a certain extent, if you can utilize 2 towels instead of 3, then that's something. Okay, so you get reward for that. Now, basic PPE that they needed is normal surgical gloves, a mask, and disposable aprons. Okay. We have other things as well, hazmat suits and all that. In the whole of the process, in COVID time, we probably do over 200 whistles, over 250 whistles. Not once, I think when the first 2-3 times, our volunteers used hazmats and all that. After that, we've never done that. So we've got enough hazmats, probably about 700 whistles. We've never used it because it's hard to move around. So we just use surgical gloves, masks, and disposable aprons. That's it. We do have other things, like for example, this is the dentist ones that they use for dentists where you can put the arms in. Sometimes women prefer that because the arms don't get wet as well. We used to use these before, rubber gloves. Now, rubber gloves are good, but then it's in terms of cost effective. Again, fuzul. And we try to keep everything down so that it's not a form of a sin. That you probably can buy 5 pairs or 6 pairs of gloves at the same time, the same price as this. So you might use surgical gloves. Now, those volunteers, so usually in a ghusl, you have about 6-7 people. 6-7 people in a ghusl. And 2 people are usually the most involved in the ghusl, so who are quite involved in the cleaning and so forth. Those individuals, 2 individuals, or 1 or 2 individuals, I'd advise to put double layer of gloves on. Double layer of gloves, just in case if they are doing istinja for the deceased or something, and it doesn't break, just in case. Usually I do advise to put double layers on, just in case. Now, other things that are needed, so that's the basic PPE. Now, in terms of cleansing, other things that are needed for istinja, so the ghusl process, it's on the slide, the ghusl process, however we have a part once you're living, that's how the volunteers will give us a ghusl in the same way. So first we do istinja, we cleanse ourselves, we use the toilet, we cleanse ourselves. Then we do wudu, then we do ghusl, and then we dry ourselves, and then we put clothes on. Same thing with the deceased. First we do istinja on the deceased, then we do wudu for the deceased, then we give the bath for the deceased, and then we put a shroud. Same for 4 things. For the istinja, so we utilize these. So these are disposable home bargains and things. This is from Boots volunteers got. The reason why we utilize these is very good is because it's waterproof on one side and it absorbs very well. So the ones from the one we get from Amazon or home bargains, they're usually longer. So we cut them into 3 pieces. Yeah. And then the waterproof side you wrap around. The waterproof side is wrapped around the hand, and they utilize like that to cleanse the deceased. Now they use 3 pieces, so one first time they use if there's anything there, because at the time of death, a lot of people do go through, like some people vomit, some people excretion comes out, urine comes out, people die in different ways. So that's cleansed. Then again, another piece is taken and cleanse again, 3rd time cleanse again. And then sometimes the body is lifted and the stomach area is, abdomen area is pressed to any excretion that is inside, that comes out, that's cleansed. So for istinja, we utilize these disposable bed mats. Some people also utilize like flannels like this, or pieces of cloth. They just get pieces of cloth They just utilize that. That's for istinja. Now, when the body comes to the ghusl table, we usually comes in a nursing gown or the clothing that they are wearing. So to take the clothes off is sometimes difficult. So you just utilize scissors to put the clothing on and you dispose of the clothes. We also use other necessary things that are agarbatti or incense sticks or bakhur burners. These are things that are quite necessary as well to ferment the room and to give a good smell in the room. You can use any type of incense sticks. You can get candles or whichever thing. But usually incense stick is quite powerful, so usually about 3 or 4 in the room so that the fumes away. A lot of patients, they come with catheters. And for catheters, when they come with catheters, the bags are still attached. And to take that urine out, if you don't take it out before doing istinja, then whilst the process of ghusl, the drops of istinja urine comes out. Now, these are 10. This is the perfect size for a catheter tube. Now, you can't buy it from conventional pharmacy. You have to order them in. And this is the nib as well. We used to use the calpol ones, and then coming off. Then the patients that get diabetic medications, they use the 10 ml one. That's the perfect size, and usually that's the amount. It's usually about 4 or 5. It's not much. But stays in the catheter. Which take that out, you have to put the tube in. Now, some of our volunteers out. If your volunteers or the people giving the ghusl are not trained to take catheter tubes or any tubes away from the body. Sometimes they do keyhole surgery, especially during COVID time. They used to put tubes into the chest for the lungs. If you're not trained to take tubes out, leave them there because you cause more harm. Because at times, some volunteers try to take them out and then you get a lot of blood. Bleeding, excessive bleeding, you can't stop it. So for catheters, syringes are very good. We've tried a lot of other things. These 10 ml syringes are very good. This is the necessary, which is called mothballs in English, or kafur, or camphor. Now, quite a difficult item to get a hold of. They usually do wooden mothballs now in this country. We order them from Pakistan or Bangladesh, or in some Asian shops they sometimes have them. So mothballs are, they're white in colour like this. Yeah? So then you put them in a pestle and water, and you push it. That is mothballs or camphor. So once you wash the body, once you wash the deceased, the last bucket of water that you utilize is you wash it with mothballs. You just rinse the body. The last wash is with the camphor water. You mix this in camphor, in water. The benefit of this is that when the deceased is put into the grave, the insects, and it's a repellent for insects. It's a repellent for insects. That's why some people even put it into the coffin. It's a repellent for insects as well. Well, it's a sunnah, but it's a repellent for insects as well. So it deteriorates the body. Insects don't deteriorate the body that fast in that sense. Other necessary things, we need buckets. Nowadays, obviously, we have a ghusl table, we have a shower head. Still, I think better than a shower or a hole. Because the speed of the water and the heat of the water can be determined. Okay? So best to have like 4 buckets. We have 2 here, about large buckets. You're best to have 4 buckets and jugs. That way you fill them up, and the 4 buckets is ample enough. So you have 1 volunteer filling them up. Now 1 bucket, utilize only 1 bucket of camphor water. Utilize camphor water and you wash the body like that. Other things that you might need, like sometimes bodies come with plasters on. To remove plasters, you have plaster removers, you have the sprays, bandages, various types of bandages. You have bleeding, anything. For excessive blood, we have 2 types of plasters. These are, actually we've tried it once or twice only. They clot they clot the blood, wounds up very fast. Or just for a short while, they freeze them up, you can see. It's like a special type of plaster. But more than that, the more easier thing to do is we use sanitary towels. Now, if they are excessive bleeding, very, very profusely, so we just put them on and we tape them up. Tape them up. So a lot of times we have to do that. You know, the thick sanitary towels, we put them there, they come from an accident or the pipes have been, the tubes have been taken out in the wrong manner. So you have to put sanitary towels on, and honestly you can't stop the bleeding. It's very, very difficult. Also you need a ritual, if it's needed, big bags, and some plasters. These are the necessary things that are needed for ghusl. Different types of wools, so you've got cotton wools, you've got 3-4 types. You also have earbuds, and we have these dental ones. Now, we use these for rinsing the mouth. Okay? Like I said, if a person is, the way a person died, every situation is different. If a person has died in the state of Janazah, but ghusl is farad on them, it is farad to do the farad acts of ghusl, i.e. rinse the mouth and the nose. So for the mouth, you don't put water in, you just rinse it and you just wipe the mouth. And for the nose, you use smaller one, that's it. You also need some type of cleanser. Now, shampoos or body wash or soap. Now, these are the necessary things that are needed for ghusl. Now, there are sunnah things that we can use, like senna leaves, and there's other things like certain types of ritual. But the reason we don't do that is because it's a very expensive process and very difficult to get hold of as well. Dry senna leaves and copper camphor and Mosque and amber and this, it's quite difficult. Now, there are books written, or I can send you the list of that if you prefer the exact sunnah items to be on my ghusl, but it's quite difficult to source out. And quite pricey one as well, with senna leaves. Senna leaves is not available in countries, it's only certain African and Middle Eastern countries that you can get senna leaves from. I know. Even certain types of bitter, amber and Mosque and all these are types of bitter that are quite pricey. So these are simple things that are needed for ghusl. So, apart from that, we'll just go through this. So only females should wash the body of a female deceased. Males for males, so that's quite easy. But a female may wash the body of a minor boy. That again, sorry.
Get the mic back on so we can finish with the.
Sorry. So important rulings again. So a female should wash the body of a female. Okay, that's fine. And alhamdulillah, we have that anyway. But in situations where there's a minor child, women can wash a minor boy, and vice versa. So usually we have males washing boys and females washing girls. We have that anyway. But at least 4 to 6 people should be present to help. People who want to say that, I just want to be there just to see what's happening. What happens is that then is in the room, in the ghusl room, there should be only people who are going to be involved within the ghusl. There shouldn't be any people who just observe or to learn. It's not the time to learn, it's time to give the ghusl there. So 4 to 6 people, 4 is minimal, you should have. 6 people or 7 people maximum you should have, no more than that. Performing the ghusl, the main thing about performing ghusl is privacy. One is the setup. I showed you. Then always cover the body, never ever. Second thing also, privacy, is that those people who are involved in the ghusl see certain things on that body, on the deceased, that should be kept private within that room. So for example, a person has a tattoo here, or he had a stab mark here, or he had something else here, or he had if you go outside and say, we washing the body, he was this, he had this, he had that. That's not privacy. So privacy of the body itself and privacy of the state of the body. Or if you say, this person, imagine something happened with the volunteers, we should keep that private. Sadly, we live in a state where some people, when they do ghusl, sadly, let me see how they work. We shouldn't do that in private parts and all that. The women's satar should be full, the men's satar should be full as well. We should not be doing anything unnecessary. It's the privacy of the satar discussion in the room and what we see in the room. Now when the body just comes into the ghusl, sorry, it can be either face towards the qibla, the leg side. The easiest and the preferred way is the legs towards the qibla. We are designing our the way we face our qiblas like that, we should also design our ghusl rooms like that, where the access of the stretchers and the coffins and everything is accessible. The drainage is that way, the legs can be placed that way. We're going to skip the steps, washing body. I'll show you the kafan. The kafan is the shroud. Shroud. Have to shroud the body. It's again. Kafan is a common obligation. In shroud. For 10 years, they don't take it out. And what happens is that when we take it out, because it's been done and because of the condition it's been in, it's all like frail. Even if you pick it up, cotton has become like paper. It's so bad. Or there's more sharp in our homes. At least wash it every 2-3 months. You dry it, iron it, keep it. Every 3-4 months, and you wash it and dry it. If you just keep it in the cellar, you get marks and you get damp smell and it stinks. It's not suitable to use. The shroud should be scented and perfumed. You do put shroud on, you with the agarbatti or with the incense stick, you go around. You should. There is no such thing as, I have seen some practices where people write with the they write certain with red liquid. They use on halwa of that. No, it's very expensive. Saffron. Saffron. Into my head, I know what it is. Saffron. So they get saffron and they write on the. They're not in sunnah or in Islam at all. Okay? Yes, to scent the body with the bakhur or with the. That's fine. So you put the bakhur down and you go around it or to put it on it, it's fine. It is not permissible to use shroud made of silk or men. That is extravagant. Okay? Cotton is the best. Preparing the kafan. Now, yourself, depending on the height of the person and the weight of the person, this is an estimated measurement, you can see. Now, this is important that for a male, there are 3 pieces for kafan. For a male, now there is the outer layer. The covering and the shirt. These are the 3. So you've got the outer layer is called the lifafa. Envelope. In Urdu, lifafa is an envelope. Envelope meaning that the outer layer envelopes the. Then the izan. Izan is and the qamis is the shirt. Now these are the 3 pieces. This is 1, 2, 3. Now the lifafa goes at the bottom. So the lifafa, qamis has a cutting here. You see here, there's a cutting here. So the head goes in to the bottom. This is the qamis. So the qamis is the shirt. Sorry. Khamis is the shirt that goes from the shoulder. It's minimal disease. Now what happens is that, so can you see, can everybody see there's a cutting here? Yeah?
Where's your helper? Go stand next to him and you help him and then you talk about it.
We'll do that, we'll do that. I'm just showing the piece, I'll show you how. So you draw it like this, and the head goes in here, and then that goes on top. Alpha is the bottom piece. And this one, you roll on top. So it's 3 pieces. For women pieces, is the headscarf. You have a headscarf, triangular, really triangular, some people do it in rectangular, cover the head. And something called the sina belt. Sina is the extra piece that goes from underneath the armpits, the thighs. One hand to one arm. People usually go 80 centimeters. So it's a covering that goes again. But those are the 5 pieces for cover. And to tie all that up, you need 3 ties. So 1 in the middle and 2 at each ends to tie the whole thing, tie the whole thing. So this is the order. So our lifafa on top. After the lifafa, we put the qamis first, then the izar, or the izar. Then on top of that, the izar. For the females, if we do a long one, we do 6, just a few centimeters shorter. Then after that, 2 extra pieces for the ladies, the khimar, which is the sinaban, which is a chest cover that goes on, and then you put it right, left, and you just tie them middle and top. Yeah, that's the process of doing a kafan on a deceased person. Miscellaneous things that is, if the deceased person was in a state of spiritual impurity, then the washing of the mouth and nose will be obligatory. I mentioned that before. Now that's why I considered as a person that we should give further ghusl. You don't know if they've died and they are in need of further ghusl, so we should do that as a further ghusl. Any questions so far? Any questions? Anybody? I think till this, this is the most important part. After that, it's what you can study yourself. If a child dies, at what age? Again, it's quite self-explanatory requirements for a stillborn. So those 2 slides you can study yourself, and if you need to know, then you just go back to that. What happens if a child dies and what months and what if it's there. So now the ghusl has been done, and the process of shrouding has been done, and it's ready for the Janazah prayers. Do we have enough time or to leave the body, or?
Yeah,
no? Should we do this, or should I go through the slides? I think.
No, do some practical.
Okay, all right. So, we get some about 2 or 3 helpers. Then
You look at it. Go on, look, man.
So basically, when we go to the hospital, or when we bring the body from the hospital, so we bring it into this stretcher, and this yellow thing that you see is called a scoop. A scoop. It's called a scoop. Now, the benefit of this is that for females, to have any male folks to handles on it. So when we bring the body to the ghusl table, to the Janazah room, this comes up like this, look. It slides out. Okay? So it's called the scoop. Now so we always put that on top. So body comes in a body bag, like this, and we put this on top as dignity. Now, if we have a metal scoop as well, in this country we have two types of burial. We have the coffin burial, casket, or we have a shroud burial. Casket, we just bury with a shroud. Now, if it's a shroud burial, we use, and we just leave the body on this, and we take that to the cemetery. Yeah? So this one we just use to carry the body from the hospital or the home. Usually, if the body has died upstairs, we'll take the scoop upstairs, and we'll just use this and bring the body down like that. So when the body comes, imagine it's like this, yeah? No, the body has come like this. Now the body comes like this. Now imagine this is the ghusl table. And the qibla is this way. Imagine that qibla is this way. So what we do is that there's two ways of doing this. Either you can put the stretcher on this side, and you have 3 people on this side and 3 people on this side, and you slide over. We have another piece of plastic that goes underneath, and you pull the body. They use that in mortuaries as well. If this is the legs, so turn it around, stand like that. So if this is the legs, no, we are with them already. I said the qibla is not winning. I'm telling you, using it. So if the qibla is that way, so what we do, brothers, if you come here, so if the qibla is that way, and this is the male form, okay? If the qibla is that way, so you can either you can put the body and pick it up, or you can just pick the scoop up. Fine? Right. Just put it in. Put it in the floor. Right. Use that.
Come on, that's fine.
Right. Come on here, brother. So if the body is heavy, you always need more people. If this is a plastic one, we can do it by ourselves. But you can also install a hoist. Yeah? We've got a portable hoist. But I think it's pointless. We've probably used it once. We spent a lot of money, we've probably used it once because it takes a lot of time to strap it in. If they're overweight, very, very exceptionally, then you have to put straps in. And to take the straps out is quite difficult.
From my experience, only I've been doing it for 1 years, the biggest in Sudan, they're like 7.5 or even 5 people. Most of the community just
Yeah. So what we do is, if we're doing the hoist, we have cotton strips. What we've done is we've got cotton strips. Cotton strips, instead of using the normal conventional belt, because the hoist comes with these belts. So to take them out, it's quite difficult. We replace them with cotton strips. And then imagine the hoist goes. What we do is just put the cotton strips and leave them there. So we just leave them there. But if you don't use the hoist, so you take this off, so you just carry the body. No, the scoop. All the way to the ghusl table, yeah? Now, the body is on the ghusl table now, okay? Now, in terms of everyone else preparation, we need to put aprons on, adorn ourselves with gloves. Another thing as well is that before you come to the masjid or ghusl area, you always do wudu. If it's salah time, pray your salah time. So if it's, for example, if Zuhar is going to be, it's going to be Asr time entry, so imagine now in Asr time, Asr time entered, or Asr time is going to be now in 15 minutes, we pray our salah, Asr salah, and then we do the ghusl. Because it is good to do ghusl for the people who have bathed the deceased, it's good to do ghusl. Also is that sometimes if najasa, filth has gone on your body, you have to do ghusl, and then namaz is delayed again. So be prepared in that sense. So the body has come here now. the first thing to do obviously, is to take the body out of the body bag, or if the body is inside a, what do you call it, clothing, to take the clothes off. That's the first thing to do, okay? Now, what we do is, that's why it's good to have about 6 people, yeah? So 2 people will always be there to cover the body from one side to the other side, okay? We'll cover the body, If it's in a body bag, you just take it out like that. If it's in clothing, then you get scissors and you put the clothing in. Now, how to take the body bag? If you go there with it, how to take the body bag up? So imagine we hold the subject over here. We hold the subject. You can hold it. Just hold it in one hand. Now, how to take the body bag off? This is one second. Which one? Now, imagine to take this side out. So what you guys do is you lift the body this way towards you, and we roll the body back underneath the little. Or the same thing with clothing. And then when it gets to the middle, we pull the body this way towards us, and you guys pull it out. Then you dispose of it in the bin. You always have 2 bins, at least 2 big bins close by. Some brothers, we've got pedal bins. Pedal bins is quite good. You step on it. Some brothers, some of our volunteers, they just put it where the Ghusl table is. Just thinking on that each corner is quite difficult. Quite easy just to put it into the thing. So once you've taken the body bag off, yeah. Once you've taken the body bag off, first the main thing to do is to have it covered all. Now, if this first piece goes napa, and then there's blood there or there's pus coming out or something, you keep that on until the last wash. You don't get another one, because it's not going to be necessary, or the last 2 washes, then you change it, and then you get another one to change it. Because if you carry on doing that, if it's bleeding excessively, if you carry on washing it, every single one is going to go dirty. So once you've washed it, you get a sanitary pad, and you put it under the wound, you tape it, and at least try to stop it as much as possible. But you can get these sprays now, which freezes wounds for a short while. But because we give ghusl with lukewarm water, what happens is them wounds still open up. So once you've got to this stage, then you do istinja. So we get our and we do istinja, yeah? That's the first thing to do, istinja. And we cleanse them. Now after that we've cleansed them once, twice, then you lift that shoulder up. So you lift the shoulder up a little, and you just move to the side. You just press them. So you lift as much as possible. Like I said, again, if the person is heavy, be very, very careful on not damaging yourself. Yeah? So you put the body down, and then again you wash it. Most of the time now, ghusl tables have a drainage system within the ghusl table. Now, if you don't have a drainage system within the ghusl table, you have something called a bench, or what do they call it? It's like a wooden ledge that you put the body on. Yeah? It raises the body a little, just slightly about this one. It raises it by about 15-20 centimeters, so that any filth that goes easily to the skin. But it's very, very, very important to have a good drainage of the ghusl table. If you don't, then you get a lot of clogs.
And what you do, just move the body on the side, and then
yeah, but if you have a good drainage system, if you have a good drainage system, then it drains the water very fast and the filth very fast. If you don't, it stays. Sometimes afterwards you think, oh, this filth there, water comes behind the leg or on the toes, because the drain system. So, like the table that we use, the drain system is in the middle of the table. So all the water comes into the middle and it goes down. But it's raised, so the drains at the top. Sorry, there's holes at the top. There's about this much gap between the tabletop and the drain. So the water stays on the bottom and it goes down easily. So the system is quite good, the newer ones. But the older ones I've noticed is the drainage is at the feet side. So the water from the head has to pass all the way and it goes here. So practically, look at the designs of the tables. So once we've taken the clothes off, done istinja, now the first thing to do is wudu. Okay? So we give wudu to the deceased. Now how we normally give wudu, we wash every single part normally. Now when it comes to the mouth and the nose, again, like I mentioned to you before, we utilize dental thing here. But before we bring the body to the ghusl room, the first thing to do is put agarbatti. So you put bakhur on. So just in case the body is smelly, do agarbatti. Some people also, what they do, they call doing, where you go around the room, and on the table that you have, you put the kafn on, you go around the room and you put the smell, the fragrance of the bakhur or the agarbatti onto the kafn as well. So you do that, or you put it on. But bakhur and thing, you burn around the room so that the smell does not affect anybody, the volunteers. Once you've done that, once you've taken the body of the istinja, then you
Just a normal
no. So you normally you get that cloth and then somebody will put their hands in and they just clean the
Well,
body.
if you don't have the cloth, just put the gloves on.
No, what do you have to lift the legs up or do you
No,
have to
no.
hold it aside?
So we can either use bucket of water, or a lot of times they use the shower head. So you just get the bucket of water and so you cleanse it.
People will be holding it.
People hold it like that, you just wash it like that as much as possible. Then there's 2-3 times you do that. The fourth time you just lift the body up, press the stomach again, take any excess out, and then you wipe again and wash again. That's it. Lift the leg up to get right inside as much as possible. You do as much as possible. Yeah. But usually with the shower head, with the force of the water, that cleanses it quite well anyway. Yeah. But the water, usually if you do about 3-4 jugs, that cleanses it quite well. Yeah.
So you don't have to go behind like
No. You don't have to do that. So we do the istinja. Now, in terms of the farad, when we come to the wudu, we don't do gargling or anything, or open the nose. So you get a dental, dental cleanser or something it's called. So one of these, and you just put water on it, and you just wipe on top of it as much as possible. Same thing with the nose. So now the wudu is done. So wudu will be the same, exact same. So you wash the face, wash the hand, wash the arm, wash the feet, masah, wudu, same process. Now we start the process of ghusl. Okay? So how we have a bath, we start the process of ghusl. So you wash the right side first, the left side, the middle, and the left side. Some people wash the middle, the left side first, and the middle. Whichever process is easier for you, you do that. But wash the body once, and then you get some shampoo, or you get some, if you have the senna leaves and the other items that are required for in the sunnah one, you can do that. And you wash the body. Normally, so you just get some water, you wash the body, you put shampoo in, you wash the body. And the last time what you do is you wash the body with camphor water. You mix the crushed camphor into one bucket, you camphor water, and you wash the body like that. And then you get the towel and you dry the body. Okay? Once you get to that stage, then you change the cloth. Then you change the cloth. And because that cloth will be soaking wet and it will nap out. So you change the cloth to get a dry one. Right?
And just to point out, sometimes when the last day, basically the gloves you on, just remove them gloves,
Yeah.
and then put the fresh one on.
That's
Some
right.
people don't do that.
I said to you, it's best to, those people who are involved in the ghusl, best to have 2 pairs on. So once you get, after that stage, if you have any napa, you take one off. People who are like, we said we just hold the cloth. We don't need it because we're not going to be doing istinja or doing the ghusl. Okay? Those people who are involved in the ghusl, doing istinja or washing the body, they should have necessary to have 2 pairs on. Take one off, bring the bit, you have another one on anyway. Okay? Hygienically, it's good to do that anyway. Everybody should have gloves on, should have masks on, and aprons on. Also, that if there is bleeding or anything like that, say on this side, say you can put cotton wool inside the ears, or if there's cotton wool, you can put. Now you have different types of cotton wool for different rules or different types of if there's like spots or tubes that are left, you have different types of
Normally, I
bandages.
said to somebody passes in the hospital, the surgery, just a normal death, where you just say, I said to the nurses or the doctors, any surgical.
Yeah, they'll take them out. They'll take them out.
Sometimes they forget.
Especially during COVID time, a lot of patients came with the tubes on, and it was very difficult. So some of our volunteers got trained by the nurses how to take tubes out, because you get like 4 or 5 bodies a day. So it's quite difficult. But I think that part or that difficulty has gone. Now, if there is, in the mortuary stuff, you just tell them to lay the tubes out. 99% of the time they lay the tubes out. If there are any holes or if there are any cuts, use cotton wool. If cotton wool doesn't work, then use sanitary pads and you close them off. Best to put cotton wool also in the mouth and sometimes in the nose as well. If the ears, any holes, best to put it just in case if there's any fluids that come out of the mouth.
Also, when you're doing it, the water does not go.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's very careful. That's why if you use forceful the shower head, what happens is that usually droplets do go into the nose or in the eye, in the mouth or in the ears. Droplets do go in and it causes, when you pick the body, more fluid comes out, which is mixed with filth. So now we come to the stage, we wash the body with camphor. Now we change the sitar cover and we dry the body. Normally we dry, now we dry with that. Then what we do is either you can, so you can lift the body and you take it. Just one second, sorry. Before we do that, let's lay the cover. Yeah? Now, the cover, the first thing is the 3 strips, yeah? 3 strips. It's quite short. 1 strip. Now our head side is there. And this side. The first thing to put on is which one? The lifafa, which is the envelope, yeah? Hold that. Yeah? The envelope, yeah? Then, what's after that? Either the kameez or the izar, whichever way is easy for you. Okay? We usually put the izar first, because if we find it that we put the izar. Now, we look, this izar, if you look at it, the lengthwise is longer. But what we do is we put it this way, yeah? Because the izar doesn't have to be from head to toe. If that person has a stomach, the izar will cover it. The person is quite big, the izar will cover it. In terms of the length, izar has to be minimal. It has to be from to cover between the navel and the knee. We do it or from the shoulders to the knee, you can say. Not that much, you know. But izar we do it from the shoulders to even the ankles, because we put it for everybody, for males and females. We keep it one size for everyone. Okay? So we do it this way, so that at least it's covering from shoulder to the ankles. That's the minimum we're covering. Then after that, the kameez. So the kameez, and you see here, so we put it this much. What we do is that we put it on top here now, like that. Just slightly below the izar, because the izar was. So then you put that forward. Now, we cut it small, so imagine if a person has a bigger head, so you just put it outside, slightly, so the head will go in. Yeah? So now, if that person has got bleeding, or there's pus coming out still, what we do on top of this, what we put is a dust sheet. You know, decorative dust sheet. I haven't bought it with me. You know, normal like from town. You put that on top. Because if they are bleeding, any excretion, any fluids come out, it doesn't stain the cover. You put that on top. Okay? So you put a waterproof dust sheet on top, very thin, so it covers everything up. So then we bring the body. Now always remember the satar has to be covered. Yeah? The satar has to be covered. So we pick the body up from the bottom. So yeah, just the body. So if you have 6 people, it's better. 1 person will hold. Keep coming. Across. Coming across to the head, yeah? So still the satar cover should be always there. Yeah, the clean one, the new one. It's there, yeah? So the first thing we do is, come here. you lift the head up and I'll put the qamis on, yeah? No, not that much, no. Okay? So the first thing we do, look, we put the qamis on, remove the satr cover. Everything's covered now. Yeah? So qamis on. Now be very careful not to rip it too much, then it'll tear too much. This is ample enough space to get the head in. Then after that, right, left, or left. Some people do it right, some people do it left, whichever is fine. So let's do. Now this has covered the face. It's fine. So we will have it longer. It doesn't matter. Okay? It covers the face. It's fine. Then the first one. The first one. Okay? No, this one. You try and tuck it in. Okay? Try and tuck it in so that as much as possible. So it's tight and low. Now always remember this, yeah? So that you move this a little bit, because if you show the face, so you keep that away. So the lifafa will cover that. Alright? So once the face has been shown and everything's been done, then you just cover it and you cover it with the lifafa. If not, it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if you leave that on. Now also in the itar part, okay, the itar part is sunnah to put on the sajda places. Okay? Some people put it on the knees, the hands, the toes, and the forehead to put that. You can also put it onto the Kafn. Some people put rose water. I don't know why, but some people put rose water. Everybody has, but it's not something necessary to do. But the itar should be put. You get it onto the hands and you wipe it. Don't get the bottle and do that. Get it onto the hands and just wipe it onto the arms, where the hands and the feet and the knees, where the suj sujood, the places of sujood. Then again, lastly but not least, we cover the lifafa. The lifafa, go like this. This is the extra big one, because if there is a large person, then at least it will cover them. Okay? Make this up. So if you notice here, there's an excess here. Okay? What you do is you twist that. You twist this a little, and then you tie it.
So that's all we go with at the end of the day, isn't it?
Sorry?
So that's all we go with at the end.
And then this one should. This is okay. So this one you can tie. Just tie like this.
No Gucci, no Versace.
This one, the head one especially, you can leave it open until the face has been shown. So obviously this one you'll have to always leave it there anyway. And after the face has been shown, then you tie it. Okay? Now, if a person, like I mentioned to you, in this country we have shroud burial or we have coffin burial. So a person who gets buried in a shroud is like this. So we have another scoop. The scoop comes in, takes the body, and to the center side, and you get buried like this. The person is in the coffin, so again, to here, and then you put it into the coffin, and that's it. The box, and then it goes up. Yeah, it's very simple. Ghusl, the way we give ghusl to ourselves when we are alive, to the deceased. One or two things, we have to take care of our safety. We have to, for example, other aspects of things that can happen, may happen. Every situation is different. Every situation is different. Is that okay?
Well, go on. Everybody's seen it practice getting up now.
Stay with another 5 more minutes, inshallah. Find space at the end.
Just stay clear, inshallah.
Janazah namaz. just to pray say the 4 takbeers. Even the muqtadis have to say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Say that as well. It is also part of the faraid. People don't say it, but you should say that. And you can go through these exercises inshallah. So these are the du'as. How to carry the body. So it's quite easy. Again, always the safety of the volunteers is more necessary than anything else. Remember that. Items are various. So you need cloth or plastic way. If it's a male body, it's fine, it's okay. Or where appropriate for. Now, this is in this. There are 2 types of graves. There is the shaq or the ship. It is a straight grave that we get in this country, and there is a lahab, which is like in these countries and in places where the soil is very sandy. So what happens is they cut down and they go across. Both of them are about 6 foot. So in this country we have 4 types of graves, or 3 types of graves you can say. We have the earthen grave, the timber grave, and the vault. These are the 3 types of grave, commonly. But they're all shut, they're all straight down. Now, the earthen grave, there's nothing inside the grave, it's just earth. So then what happens is that the body goes, that's the earthen grave. Then you got the timber vault. Timber vault is where they put timber around the bottom of the grave for about 2 foot, about 3 foot, about half foot. And then there's the vault. Vault is made of a concrete. These are the 3 types of grave. Now, some councils say because of the absorbent of rain within the soil and the body moves. What they do is they might just dig about 100 meters and they'll build these. It's just breeze blocks. They'll build these graves and it's already made. They don't have to dig anything. It's already made. Now they just get fat. Into place each other. The closer shroud burial. Best. The Quran Allah says we are going back to soil. We will be resurrected from soil. So our bodies are made to decompose the body. The body has to touch the example is, it takes about 30 years for a oak casket coffin to decompose in the grave. And you might put a kitchen cabinet outside, or the veneer wood outside. It takes a long time for it to get. It's not in leaving it there, it decompose. So in the same manner, when we put a coffin, decompose the coffin, what will happen to it? It won't decompose, it'll just rot. It'll rot. Then after the insect, then it will start decomposing. Here, the body is just rotting there, it's not decomposing. There's a difference. So if it's in a vault, some concrete, so concrete at the bottom, concrete on the 4 sides, and the slabs at one of them, and then you put in a coffin. There's no air absorption, nothing. It just, the body rots, it doesn't decompose. So the best burial and the best for the respect and the honor of the deceased. Second best is shroud burial. And last but not least, burial. The majority of the councils do about timber vaults, timber burial. What happens is that So you bury the body. If you go the next day, you'll see the grave has gone down. The reason why is the weight of the soil on top of the slabs they put on top of the timber slab, that will come for the grave to settle. So don't get worried if you have buried your loved ones. Next day you go back and the grave has gone down. Laying the body, after this, now laying the body, if you see the body on both of these pictures, then the janazah, the body should be as much as possible in the grave, put it towards the qibla side, as much as possible. If you put soil underneath or rocks underneath, you put it. If it's in a coffin, yes, some people put soil in the coffin and try to put it, or put pillows in the coffin to raise it to the right hand side. Whichever is convenient for you. But if it's the shroud burial, try and raise it towards the qibla as much as possible using soil underneath, like how it's going here in these two pictures. Here, okay. Soil underneath and the janazah towards the qibla. Filling the grave up, again, try and fill the graves up yourselves if it's necessary. Obviously, there's also always the grave cemetery staff that help with the diggers and so forth. The dua is to read minha. Doing adhkar, dhikr, life of the hereafter easier for them. Last but not least, alhamdulillah, this is 99.9% stop. Very rarely people send bodies to Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, or any of the homeland. Repatriation was 20 years ago is quite common. People that used to get buried here, they used to get buried back home, and process called embalming, where they fluid with alcohol and all that to keep the body intact and not to rot. They put these fluids inside them to embalm back home. Again, you can go through that. You say, well, alhamdulillah, that's stopped. It's stopped by probably about 1 in 100 to another country to be buried. But the thing with embalming and of the grave in many days, and again giving harm and not giving dignity to the deceased. I think this is the last part. Ta'ziyat. Ta'ziyat is visiting the house of the deceased or attending the janazah. That's ta'ziyat. Now, when we go for it should be done no more than 3 days when the person has died, not after the person has been buried. The reason why we keep a very short period of ta'ziyah is that because for the deceased, it doesn't cause them any mental illness. If you carry on for a few days, few months, or a week or so, it carries on and it plays a mental illness on them. There's also a hikmah behind what the practice of Islam is. So visit the house of the deceased within the 3 days of the morning. The visitor should engage themselves in the recitation of Quran, dua, and dhikr. That is the only to go and talk. Yes, if there's a very close family friend, we should speak to the bereaved family in a manner that reminds them with good thoughts and good reminders of the deceased. Not saying like, oh, my if we say stuff like that, then what's going to happen? And anxiety and mental illness. And so the period of mourning for a woman whose husband has passed away shall be for 4 months and 10 days. For any of the relative, the period of mourning shall be for 3 days from the moment the person has passed away, not 3 days from burying. There's a big difference here. Some people do it longer. Distribution of food, where you feed the people. Yes, for the first 3 days, it is good. It is mustahab for the neighbors and family to send them food, but not for the whole khandan. Neighbors, oh, let's just go and eat there. No. Yes, the process where people come from out of town and their families, a man who come from out of town, please eat and go. That's hospitality. The family is going to bereavement to help the family, the neighbors and the neighborhood. Can't send them food for 3-4 days. That's good. But we should not, those people who are not, who are partaking that food, and the relative, but do understand this. Feeding of the guests or the feeding of anybody, the money should not be taken from the deceased savings or the money that the deceased had left behind. Yes, if the family get together and say, oh, the brother says, I'll pay for it, I'll do this, or the family get together and feed everybody, that's fine. Never should it be taken, whatever the heirs are, because that's the money of the heirs. It becomes a communal thing that a community is what they do, quite common after a person has died, from the money of the that they will get reward for that. But in fact, that money is not the deceased's money anymore. It's the money of the heirs. If all this is zulm upon those people who are not mindful of that. So one of the family members feed everybody, that's fine, that's their hospitality. Structures of graves, now gravestones and big very simple, just as a name tag and very simple. As in, and like I said to you before as well, keeping the cost minimal is more rewarding than over exaggerating. Visiting the graveyard is the sunnah ways of visiting. Visit your loved one. It gives a form of reminder for us that we will be also ending there one day. The sunnah dua as well. So when we go there, contemplating on life, contemplating upon, when you walk around, we see yesterday from 100 years ago. Then you get reality of life. That's about it. So that end of life over to bereavement when the person has passed away. Now, after the person has passed away, there is help. Families, for example, those people who are on universal credit, they can get help for the. There's also help for. There's also support that needs to be that they need. Of Janazah, rights of the deceased. I hope I've covered most of the things. If I have missed anything, do forgive me if I've said anything wrong. And hopefully, inshallah, it's been helpful for us. And I'm reminded somebody has passed away, and what should we do to prepare for that? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our sitting. May also give us the ability to act upon some of the graveyards and